Good morning. This is Jim Rothermich with Iowa Appraisal in Des Moines, Iowa, also known as the Land Talker. I'm starting something new, Land Talker TV on YouTube, and I am promoting Iowa Appraisal and Land Hero. Land Hero is a subscription-based software that you can access sale data that I provide, and it works really slick. So what I intend to do with these YouTube meetings is interview realtors or anybody in the farms land space and get more knowledge about what's going on in the real estate market. So, my first interviewee is Jeff Obrecht, also known as the Dirt Dealer, located in Iowa Falls, Iowa. And me and Jeff have known each other for a long time, and he has a lot of experience selling farms, probably sold more farmland in Iowa than anybody, and very knowledgeable of the market. And so he's our first person. So, Jeff, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this morning. Of course, my name is Jeff Obrecht, the dirt dealer. I started with Farm Credit back in 1975, worked there 5 years, started my own business in 1981 at the beginning of the farm crisis. Not sure that was the smartest thing in the world, but it's worked out real well. If you can survive in those times, you can survive in any times. Uh,
Sure.
Had my own business for 22 years. Then I worked for Farmers National for 11 years, did a lot of their auctions throughout the Midwest and Iowa, of course, uh, and then ended up worked for People's Company for 2.5 years. And then in 2016, went back on my own again, and we've been an independent ever since that time. Mostly right now, we're concentrating in Iowa. I used to get into some of the surrounding states, but there's a lot of business here in Iowa, and so we just stay here. We like the area to service the people here in our own state. So we really enjoy that, enjoy what I do. I've got four other salesmen with me right now, two that are pretty active, two that they help me a lot with our auctions and things, so that works out well. Uh, Also a state certified appraiser, became a state certified appraiser in 1992. And so we kind of do a round robin of things here, sell farm real estate. We do not sell residential, but mainly farm real estate, farm appraisals, et cetera. We used to do a lot of machinery auctions and auctions. We do not do those anymore, although I say that we have one coming up. But that's kind of my history at this point in time, Jim.
How did you come up with the Dirt Dealer logo, or how did you come up with that? And when did that start?
Well, Jim, it's probably been, I kind of lose track. It's probably been 15 years ago. But one of the reasons I did that was, people would call you to go out and talk to them about their farm. And, there would be maybe one or two other realtors that they've invited out there or at the same time or a different time, but on their farm. And that's great. Competition is good for all of us. But I decided that, when we do that, we go out there, we all give them the same story. We're all dressed alike. We all look alike. I needed something to set me apart from everybody else. And so one day I just started scribbling down some things on a piece of paper. The dirt dealer kind of caught, and it is probably the best thing I've done in my career is basically have a handle, which is the dirt dealer. When people call me today, they don't ask for Jeff Obrecht, they ask for the dirt dealer. And I'm sure you have the same thing with Land Talker. You're
Yeah.
the land talker that sets you apart from a lot of different people.
Yeah, it has. And can you just move over to the side a little bit so everybody could see your sign in the background? Yeah, boy, that looks nice. That looks nice. Looks very nice.
Yeah, my one of my salesmen, Archie Kuntz from Brooklyn, Iowa. Archie had that made. One of the body shops over there has one of those laser cutters or laser torches, and had that made for me. It's kind of cool. I thinking about it the other day, Jim. I thought, when I die, I think that's really a good headstone for me, isn't it?
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just hang it right
Save all
right
my
there.
family a lot of money.
Well, that, I kind of me and you have known each other for a long time, and when Twitter was coming out there in the mid 2010s, I had to come up with a Twitter handle, and so I thought, well, I'll be the land talker. I'll just start posting results of land auctions because I knew that's what everybody wanted to see. And it, like I said, it's people know you probably don't know my name, but they know me as the land talker. So, um,
Right, right.
and
And
I've
I don't
had
know if
people
you have,
stop me and ask me, are you the land talker?
yeah,
Where I'm out and about. I'm like, yeah, I'm afraid so.
I don't know if you have, but I have trademarked it in all 50 states. So if anybody gets any ideas, it's already gone. So
Yeah. Yeah, I found that out to get it trademarked and pay the fee or whatever and make sure nobody
yeah,
takes it from you.
yeah,
But it
yeah.
has worked good,
But
especially with social media, the way social media is nowadays.
yeah, it's worked out great for me, and I think it's kind of cool. It's got me to do a lot of different things that I may have not had an opportunity to do just because of the dirt dealer. So
Yep, yep.
ironically, really quick, I was down in Cancun a week ago, and a guy stopped me because I have a dirt dealer tattoo on my right
Yeah.
shoulder. And I'm out on the beach, and he stops me and says, "Do you sell dirt?" I said, "Well, I sell farm ground." Oh, he says, "I sell dirt." And he does. When the contractors take the black dirt off of uh, developments, he buys that from them, and then he turns around and sell it. So it's kind of interesting. So wherever you go, and I got a tattoo here, but wherever you go, that thing, it seems to follow you just a little bit. So it's pretty cool.
Yep, yep. No, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's start talking about real estate. Why don't you kind of go over how things were for you in 2024 and how many farms you sold and just kind of speak to that.
Sure. Well, 23, I like to go back to 23 because we ran 70 farms during that year. 24, we ran 50. Dollar volume wasn't down a whole lot, but a little bit. Uh, it's, and you and I have talked about this, and a lot of people know it too. 65% of all land in the state of Iowa is owned by people over 65 years of age. And so we're dealing with not just mom and dad anymore, we're dealing with the kids. And so that's why, I think in the next 10 years, if I can stick this thing out, uh, there's going to be pretty good business in land sales. We're probably going to have the largest transfer of wealth that we've ever seen just because of the age of the people that own this ground. And so our feeling is in the last 3 years, I've taken on two new salespeople. They're younger guys in their 30s. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for those two young men to really get into this thing and have a really, really good career in this business. To me, there's nothing like selling real estate. And from our business, it's pretty steady, 50, 60, 70 farms a year, kind of no matter what we do. We try and be somewhat aggressive in these things, whether it be commission rates, what we think they're going to bring. But again, I stay in Iowa, I don't get outside of Iowa. And so for us, it's been a really, really good deal. And I enjoy the people that I work with, the owners, the buyers, sellers out here, just everybody. It's just a good business to be in.
So how does if somebody's wanting to sell a farm, how does that start? They just give you a phone call, kind of, can you walk through that, how that process
Sure,
starts?
Jim. Once I get a telephone call from someone, visit a little bit about them. And of course, a lot of times what they'll want is they'll say, well, I need my farm appraised and then my first question to them is, well, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to sell it. Well, look, tell you what I can do. I can put a proposal together. In that proposal, it says, this is what I know about your farm. The next part is this is how we would recommend, whether listing, auction, whatever. The next part is this is what I think it's worth because I'm a state certified appraiser. I should know. And the last part is what our fees, expenses, et cetera are. So I tell them we can put that together. That is no obligation, free, doesn't cost you anything. And if we do business, great. We use that information. If we don't do business, you keep it, you go your way, I go my way. And what I like to do is get something in their hand or get back to them within 72 hours of when I get that telephone call.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
what to me, what that does, when you do that, that tells people this is how this guy works. I've
Mhm.
had situations when I worked in some other situations where, we'll get back to you and give us a week or two. When people want to sell something, they want to sell it. If you go to buy a car, and if you want to buy a car and that dealer doesn't have what you want, what do? You go down the road to the other dealer.
That's right. That's right.
Real simple.
Yeah.
And so when they're in the mood, you have to catch them when they're in that mood. And so uh, I anymore, you run into, well, just email it to me. I don't necessarily like to email it because when you email something, you never get a chance to sell yourself to that person. It's just all in black and white there. Yeah, it might be a fancy proposal, etc. But this is more about personal relationships than anything, as far as I'm concerned. They need to trust you. You need to trust them. You need to have a good rapport with them. So I always like to, if I can, get it in their hand and go sit across the table from them. I've been to Minneapolis, Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, whatever. And I don't mind driving down there to visit with these people because it's a big deal for them. Selling a farm is a big deal today. A
Yeah.
lot of money
Well,
out there.
absolutely. Typically it's multi-million dollars, and it's a once in a lifetime event. So it needs to be handled that way too.
Well, yeah, I always tell them, if you do this, number one, you want to do it right because you're only going to do it once, or we hope you're only going to do it once, you know. Because sometimes people they'll say, well, let's just go ahead and list the farm, and if it doesn't sell, we'll auction it. Or they'll say, let's auction it, and if it doesn't sell, we'll list it. That doesn't work because what you have at that point is a tainted farm. So, like I say, I like to get something in their hand. I like to meet with them as best I can. If there's 4 or 5 owners, sometimes you have 4 or 5 meetings because they don't all live in the same place. Sometimes families, unfortunately, there's a little bit of friction and they won't meet with the other party. But my job is more in that situation to be a counselor than anything else. If they want to keep fighting, let them fight. All it's going to do is cost them money and waste time.
Mhm.
My feeling is I bring some common sense to the table that they can make some business decisions and not those decisions based on emotions because emotions will get you in trouble every time. It's a business decision.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a theory I've always went by. Never make a business decision based on emotion. Um, if you have to make a decision based on emotion, it probably ain't going to be the right decision after you give it some time to think about it.
I remember one case many, many years ago. There was a lot of emotion flowing in a situation. And when we got done, on 80 acres, the people had spent over $100,000 on attorney fees, my fees, et cetera, which was just did not make sense to me at all. We got the job done when it was all said and done. But to me, that's $100,000 that those people could have used in a different,
Absolutely.
versus selling. Whether you pay an attorney or me or whatever, it doesn't really make any difference. But to me, it was money wasted. So,
Maybe the attorney didn't look at it that way, though.
well, I'm sure they didn't. Well, I didn't either.
Well, that all sounds good. Let's talk about your upcoming auction, 387 acres,
Yep.
April 4th. Um, can you just speak to that? You got it divided up in, let's see, 3 tracks.
Yep.
And
That's correct. Uh,
uh,
this is a farm just south in East Iowa Falls, about 2, 3 miles. I knew the owner for
Hardin
years.
County,
What's the, yeah,
Hardin
Hardin County.
County.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Hardin County Farm, just southeast Iowa Falls. I knew dad, I knew son. Son passed away, widow, and her family is selling this. But by the way, we're also doing a machinery auction for them, which I said I normally don't do, but in this situation, I'm doing one. We divided it into 3 different tracks, mainly because We've got one track at 153, another one of 160, and one at 74. In all honesty, that lets everybody into play because sometimes when people sell these farms, they either don't split them up, or if they do split them up, they do buyer's choice. Let's talk a little bit about buyer's choice, okay?
Go right ahead.
Buyer's choice, if you get the top bid, you can take one, two, or three, or you can take them all, okay? I got a little different philosophy on that. Sometimes it's easier because if you know somebody's got a big checkbook out there, you don't have to work as hard because you know that guy's probably going to take all three of them. And we just had one here locally that there were 8 tracks. The first one sold to the tenant, the next 7 sold to one individual. He took them all. Well, there was a lot of disappointed people there because they wanted to buy a farm and they didn't get the opportunity. My feeling is I would rather sell them one at a time. For example, if I've got an individual that's got a little smaller checkbook and he wants the 74 acres, if he knows I'm going to do choice, chances are he's not even going to come because he can't compete with the guy that can buy all of them in a choice situation. If I limit it where we're selling one, we're selling two, and we're selling three, no combinations, not putting them together, that gives him an opportunity to bid. So number one, that makes him happy. Now he may not get it, but at least he got to bid on it. And from the realtor standpoint, yeah, I got to work a little bit more at it, but I may end up getting a little bit more money out of it because I did it that way. And when that buyer leaves, the young guy or the little guy, at least I had a shot, versus like the one the other day where all 7 of them were gone. And so I normally don't do the choice deal. I don't care if there were 20 different tracks. I probably would still just do choice because that lets everybody into play. And I need that little guy with a smaller checkbook to push the big guy. And that's the only way he can do that is by selling them separately. These pieces, they're all contiguous. Um, there has been some pattern tiling done on some of it. Drains well. It's just kind of a gradual slant, anywhere from 2 to 5% or less, all the way down to the bottom. Like you say, all one piece. Mile long rows, guys like those. And we've had very, very, very good interest in this stuff so far.
So you've had a lot of phone calls on these farms.
Yeah, we've had a lot of phone calls, a lot of local interest in it. But it's good dirt. We're anywhere from 88 CSR down to 81.5,
Yep.
and with pattern tile on this stuff. And I just got the yield information this morning. Yield information on this. It runs anywhere and on corn, anywhere from the one year we were short on moisture. I got it last 10 years, 187 bushel, all the way up to about 240, 250. So
Mhm.
it's good dirt. It'll produce. Get the
Yep.
right guy farming it, it'll produce very well.
Yep. It looks like it looking at the soil maps on those. And I will say one thing, I love your cell flyers. They are very nice looking and it has all the information that a buyer would need. Uh, just very, very easy to look at and it tells you everything you need to know on that. Most of everything you need to know.
Well,
If you
thank
need to
you,
know
man.
more,
Well,
you can call you,
yeah,
but
I appreciate it. I I try and keep them as simple as we can. I always say I keep them simple because usually the auctioneer and realtor isn't very smart, so I got to keep things simple. But I want to make sure everybody understands. And the main thing is, if somebody doesn't understand, all you got to do is call me.
yep.
I'm available basically 24 hours a day. I have had a call at 1:30 in the morning on a farm one time, which is a little drastic, but so I'm available anytime, weekends, whatever. Because if you're going to be a realtor in this business, it's a full-time job. It's not a just during the week or anything. Saturday and Sundays, you're going to take calls.
Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5 job by no means, and weekends off, is it?
Well, it isn't, and it's interesting because sometimes my wife will get a little uptight with me because she'll see a number coming in on a weekend or whatever, and she'll say, "Why are you answering that thing? You don't know who that number is." Understand that, but if you think about it, This land is owned by people all over the United States now. They've inherited it from mom and dad or aunt and uncle, whatever. I'm not sure who that is. Could be a scam call. We don't know, but I got to answer it. I got to at least take that call and see who is on the other end of it.
Yep, yep. And just a little bit more on this farm. The
Mm.
purpose of you splitting these farms up is to, to allow more buyers to participate because one guy couldn't, or maybe the amount of participants, if it was just left in one farm, maybe it would eliminate some of the smaller buyers, is what you're saying.
Well, right. Everybody comes to that auction to play. I want to make sure they get the opportunity.
Hmm.
I am just not going to set things up so a particular individual buyer has an advantage over anybody else. When
Hmm.
when when they come to my auctions, I want to make sure that everybody has the same leverage on buying a farm.
Sure. And what kind of drives the size of those tracks? Do you use natural divisions or is there something that you look at that say, okay, we're going to put one track here, another track here, and another track here? Is there some a rule of thumb that you use that you could speak to?
Well, sometimes it's natural divisions based on how they lay. We've
Right,
got this creek here. We're going to sell everything on
right.
this side, sell things on there. We've got one coming up in June that way. We got some on one side of a creek, some on the other side of the creek. Now, if a guy wants to buy both of those, he can put them back together. That's fine. Um, I normally don't like to get a parcel over 160 acres. 160 acres at 14, 15 grand an acre gets to be a big chunk of money. Now I've got one right now I'm working on that's going to be about 190 acres, but it's probably going to be an $8,000 to $9,000 farm. That's a little easier to stomach. So sometimes we look at natural, sometimes it's just how do these things split best, and also ease of farming. You have to be so cognizant of with big machinery, you don't want to mess something up so a guy is not happy with the way it's split up. And if he's not happy with the way it's split up, he is not going to bid the way you'd like him to bid. So we try and look at all of those things. And sometimes myself and I usually try and get one of my other salesmen involved in these things. We'll sit down and look at them and we both look at it and say, okay, how would you split this if you were selling it? To
Mhm.
get another opinion on these things because that to me that's very important. But I try and keep it under 160 acres if I can. So
Mhm. Yep, yep. And then I know one thing that tile is very important up there in that area where you're in that glaciated soil. That tile is a big deal, and so these farms should sell well. Looking at my Land Hero data before we got on this, a lot of the range of good quality farms in Hardin County ranges from $140 per CSR2 point up to 175. So I would expect these farms to be probably on the upper end of that. So, um,
well, I would think so, Jim. And I always make this announcement at the auction with tile. Fellas, tile does two things. And sometimes they forget about one. Number one, it makes a better farm. Number two, depreciation. You get a farm, I got one of my farms got 48,000 foot of tile in it. Well, that depreciation on there means a lot. That makes a big difference. So I always
mhm.
try and make that announcement so the guys, you got to remember that there's tile in this thing and it'll work for you and depreciation. So
Yep, yep. And then the sellers, is just selling it for an estate, or can you speak to that or not?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
an
this
estate.
is this is just a state. Yeah, like I say, Doug passed away, and in fact, I sold his dad a farm. This is how long I've been hanging around here. I sold his dad a farm. His dad died probably 15 years ago, and I never sold Doug any because they had all the farms they wanted at that point. But now it's kind of ironic. I get to sell their farms for him, and one of the farms that I'm selling is the one that I sold his dad. So it's kind
Oh,
of cool in a way.
yeah, right. Sure. Well, that's cool. And then what do you have coming up after this auction? Can you speak to that at all?
Well, yeah, I can, Jim. We've got. I don't have anything definite right now on this particular auction. We're gonna get it. It's just date wise. We got some paperwork we need to get done, but it looks like April 11th. We're going to have another 306 acres come up, and it's only about 3 to 4 miles away from this sale we're having on April 4th. And it's the same situation. It's an estate. There'll be 151 acres, a 75 and an 80. The individual that owned this was a good friend of mine. He owned his own tiling machine, so you know it's tiled.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
in fact, I ended up selling that tiling machine on his sale here a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
So we've got that coming up. Then June 6th, up south of Hampton, halfway between Hampton and Iowa Falls, we've got 427 acres coming up there. That's going to be split into 53 on one side of a ditch, 147 on the other side of the ditch, and then 114 and 109. Again, that makes it two things. One, makes it easier for people to buy them in a little bit smaller numbers.
Hmm.
Number two, those are split mainly based on how they lay.
Hmm.
So, and then we've got a couple, three, four other things we're working on right now that are coming up. So we're busy, and again, there'll be farms coming up down the road for us. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just can you speak to market conditions right now? Can you speak to that?
well, yeah, Jim, and that's a good point. Right now with price of corn beans, there's been some pressure on some of these farmers. We've all heard stories about some guys that have had some issues and maybe had to sell something to get in the field this spring. Uh, so that's always a concern. But even with that, good dirt is going to bring good money. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's going to bring good money.
Hmm.
I just visited with an individual this morning on a farm. He bought a small farm over in Grundy County, and I did the appraisal on it, and we had a discussion over values. He wasn't upset or anything, but when I got all done, I said, there's a couple things with this farm that you bought. Number one, it was 48 acres. That fits a lot of people's pocketbooks.
Hmm.
Number
Hmm.
two, fortunately and unfortunately, it's in Grundy County.
Yeah, that's a
Grundy
hot
County,
county.
yeah, you can easily add another 10, 15, $20 a CSR point on that stuff or more. And so to me, the good dirt is hanging in there pretty darn good. The medium to a little bit lower stuff is probably a little bit of pressure on it. Um, Except, I think, and you got the history on a lot of this stuff, some of this recreational ground is still bringing pretty good money
Yeah.
for one
Yeah.
reason or another. And Jim, that might end here a little bit with, with our economy right now, we're getting a little pressure. So there's some people that are losing their jobs, et cetera. And that might have some effect on that recreational ground and down the road here a little bit. I'm
Yep.
I'm not a scholar on that, but it may have a little bit of difference on that. So
Yeah, I heard on the news this week that John Deere was laying off like another 120 people there in Ankeny. And so, while that's a bad deal for them, but those vendors that supply whatever they need there to make whatever they make there, they're also going to be laying people off too. So, but we don't hear about those either, or not as
well,
much.
that's exactly right. And I have toured quality manufacturing there in the Urbandale, West Des Moines area. I think they've got 4 or 5 buildings there, and a lot of the parts that they manufacture are for John Deere in Ankeny. And here a while back, I had heard that they were letting some people go too. And of course, Firestone Tire, they've let some people go. So it's a real ripple effect, but you're right. You don't hear about the guy over here that's supplying that gas cap for a fuel tank,
Yeah.
You don't hear about those people or those
Right.
those entities. So
Right. But like what I'm hearing from the rec guys that sell rec farms, the market's just as strong as ever right now. And there's still people
yeah.
that's got money willing to pay, good prices for the rec ground. And but looking at the crop ground here in Iowa, as you know, I keep track of all the land auctions in Iowa and put out a lot of information about auction results, and it seems like we kind of had a little post election bump in values, and it really stabilized. And looking at this year, we've only had 2 to 3 no sales each month, January and February. And even going into December, it wasn't much of a problem. Whereas before the election, we was having some no sales, several, almost like one month we had 9 in one month. So that's
Right,
high.
right,
So the like you said, the good farms are still selling well, and we might be seeing some adjustment on the lower to mid quality farms. But it's not a whole lot. It's not much,
right.
but it is
Well,
adjusting.
and you talk about no sales, and we have no sales every once in a while too, just like everybody else does. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in the real estate business what I call managing sellers' expectations.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Jim, if two people come out and look at your farm, and one of them says, I can get you 1,000 an acre, and the next guy comes and says, I get 15, even that guy that said 12, he might be your best friend, but it's like, geez, this guy tells me he can get 15. So who you go with? And so you need to kind of, I guess, be as honest as you can with these people. Sometimes it hurts because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that 12. They want to hear that 15. But in the long, tell them that 15, but you'll be able to produce,
Yep.
or it's going to backfire on you.
Yep. Yep.
And so, we try to be as honest as we can with people. Like I say, sometimes we may lose a deal because of it, but maybe that's okay. I don't know.
Jeff, we need to be wrapping up.
Yep.
If somebody wants to talk to you, yeah, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can get on my website, thedirtdealer.com or Mid Iowa Real Estate. They can call me, myself, 515-689-1648, or my office is 641-648-5065. Any time of the day. I'm usually up by 5 o'clock, so anytime after 5 would be great.
All right. Very good, very good. Well, this is Jim Rothermich with Iowa Appraisal. This is our very first recording, and I want to thank you for being my very first person, and enjoyed visiting with you. And we'll talk soon.
Well, I appreciate it, Jim. You provide a valuable service. You've got a niche there that a lot of people, as they look at you right now, have tried to copy it. But it's kind of hard to copy the original guy, and
That's
do it
right.
right.
That's right.
So I think it's valuable information. I know you got the Land Hero thing going on, and that's a good deal. I appreciate it. When the other thing is when I can call you and talk to you and ask you questions about something, and you can usually get me an answer or whatever. So you've got a niche there. It's a great niche to be in, and hopefully people take advantage of that. So
Well, Land Hero, the way to get a hold of Land Hero is www.landhero.us. And if you want to get appraiser verified sale data, um, that's the way to do it. And it is updated every week. It's very accurate information. It's got all the auction results with the sale flyers at your fingertips. It's in a spreadsheet that you can adjust for yourself. It's also got a geospatial map. So, and you can buy it a la carte. Say if you just need information in one county, we can do that for you. If you want to do several counties, you can get that information. It'll be current information. A lot of the information that's out there now has a time lag. And maybe that's not so much important right now, but when the market was exploding there, and after COVID, that thing went up over 50% in less than 2 years. Well, having that current data meant a lot because the market was moving so fast.
right,
So, but
right,
the more current the data, the better the information is the way I look at it. If you're using a service now that's putting their newest stuff is 6 months old, that's okay, but it's not the
yeah.
best. But that's
Well, when we try and get try and get back to these people in 72 hours. If we're trying to use information that's 6 months old, that doesn't work real well. You know?
Yeah, right, right,
So,
right, right. And so the market's, it's not moving a lot right now, but it's still moving. It's still moving.
yeah,
So, and then as far as getting my monthly newsletter, it has all the auction results in Iowa for a month. And so the way to sign up for that, it's a free subscription. The way to sign up for that is uh, www.iowaappraisal.com, and there's a way to sign up or subscribe, get a free subscription to that, and it comes out once a month via email, first business day of the month. So I got a new one coming out on Monday, so highly recommend signing up for that. It'll keep you current on what's going on in the land market here in Iowa, and other people from other states sign up for it because they know Iowa leads the trend. If there's going to be a trend starting, it's going to start in Iowa first. So a lot of people from around Iowa get the newsletter as well, just because they know that.
right, right.
So, all
Yeah.
right, Jeff. Well, I'm going to stop recording here and just stay on, and then we'll talk. Okay.
I'll let you have another look at my grave marker.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.